What is up? What is up? We are Kyle and Mike, First Seed Sports, coming at you. And we're feeling the rookie fever, and we are going to hit you up with a rookie mock draft for Dynasty football. A little bit of specifics. It is PPR, just straight up PPR mock draft. No super flex, even though honestly my hot take of the year is I think every PPR mock draft or PPR rookie draft this year will look like PPR Superflex mock drafts, just because the quarterbacks aren't that good. But that's just my take, or at least not that worth it. But that's my take. But before we roll into that, I want to give a little special shout out. Mike can point up to them over there. Our boys Underdog, if you kind of jump over there, use code FIRSTSEED, you will get a 100% deposit match. What that means is you go in, you drop down $50, and you're just like, I'm ready to play with 50. They'll be like, here you go. Here's another 50, just because you used our code. What that means, it means you get free money. And that code gives you up to $100. So you put down 100, you get 100 back. You can play with 200. You play with double your money. And we love Underdog. You'll see us throughout the summer jumping into a ton of best ball mocks, best ball actual drafts. I know they just announced, what was it, Mike?
$2 million to first place.
$2 million prize to first place in their best ball mania. And that is super enticing. I know Mike and I are probably going to stream quite a bit of drafts in there just because we're going to be loving jumping into those. Just for a shot at that couple mil. And so join us there. Use code FIRSTSEED. Win a couple $100 if you want. Play their pick'ems. Those are awesome. I had a chance to play those. Those are really cool. And just have a lot of fun with it. Best balls are really cool and something to check out. And you'll see us doing a lot with them this summer. And without further ado, Mike, are you ready to mock?
I've been ready to mock, man. April is the best month of the year for the rookies, man. I can't wait to dive in. I have a lot of maybe over-the-top takes on some of these rookies. I don't think it was the most spectacular draft class, but I've definitely got some interesting takes on some of these guys. So I'm ready to go, man.
You've always got takes, though, so I'm not – I can't say I'm surprised. All right, so let's jump into this.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Wow. So, Mike, you went ahead and you claimed the 4th spot. And I was like, you know what? I'll switch it up a bit. And I went with the 10th spot, which means I didn't make the championship this past year. But that's all right. My team probably looks a lot better than yours. But we are doing this blind. We don't have any teams that we are specifically drafting for. These are we're basically drafting rookies. This is kind of how I would approach any rookie draft anyways. I personally, unless you're like super QB desperate, maybe at that point you trade for a current quarterback already, or you trade back to claim a quarterback in this draft. But I personally, I think this is one of those years, one of those rookie draft years where you draft best available guy. And that's kind of what we're going to do with this draft.
Highly agree with that. That's exactly why I picked spot 4 as well, because as I was saying before the show today, it's not a spot I want to be in drafting that early this year. There's so much good value all over the place, but I don't think there's that one guy that stands out. So hopefully I get what I'm looking for at 4 here. So let's see what the CPU is going to do to us here.
Yeah, that's the other exciting thing. We don't have our knucklehead friend, teammate, league mates drafting in front of us. We've got a computer. And quite honestly, this is probably going to be smarter than them. So it's going to be a little trickier. But yeah, all right, Mike, if you're ready to see who falls before you, and who knows.
Yeah, let's do it.
May actually make it to you.
Let's see.
You never know with these drafts. And here we go.
There you go.
He did not make it to you.
He did
I
not.
hate to break it to you, Mike.
It's all right. It's all right. So I'm,
What do you do?
I'm more upset. This is something I feel very strongly. I'm more upset that I actually did not get Kenneth Walker at 4.
Huh.
That is the running back that I actually wanted so bad in this draft. I felt like his spot, his skill is just over the top. Now, I watched a decent amount of film on both of them, and I don't mean like looking up highlights. I mean like going back to some games, watching through the first half, seeing what's going on. I think Kenneth Walker is a more skilled running back than Breece Hall. On top of that, I think he went to a team that is more run heavy, and it's a better opportunity for him. And I say that sparingly because Breece Hall now, I think, is in a split backfield with Michael Carter. He's obviously going to take the reins over Carter. You don't draft a running back to back 2 years in a row unless you absolutely messed up the first pick. And they didn't. They didn't even mess up with Michael Carter. But when you got Breece Hall there, he was the first running back off the board in the real NFL draft. I mean, he's a tank, and his NFL comparison is Adrian Peterson. So it's very hard for me to accept that Breece Hall is going to hit that ceiling. A few other things as well. Breece Hall, I'm pretty sure, ran a 4.3 40, 4.3 and change, obviously 40. And if you watch his film, it does not show up on the field. He doesn't have that 4.3 game speed that I think Kenneth Walker has that advantage on the game speed rather than the 40 speed. So there's a lot of things that kind of tie into this. Go ahead.
I paused. I noticed just 2 seconds late. Just in time. I paused it right before.
Oh, perfect. I'm ranting over here. The league would have been on my head. They would have been texting me, "What are you doing? Auto pick in the first round." All right, but
yeah, you don't want to be that guy.
Oh, not in the first round. Definitely not in the first round.
So I was gonna say, I wanted to mention because you tweeted out your rookie rankings, and I saw Kenneth Walker as your RB1, and
Yes.
Interesting. That is very much different than me. I, much like the masses, have Breece Hall, one, but you went with him as your RB2, and
yep.
I love a little bit of a contrarian take, but I love also hearing why rather than just tweeting at you some nonsense.
Oh yeah, and that's the funny thing about those tweets. You send out that tweet with no context, everybody's going to be up in flames. I probably had a few unfollows, maybe a few follows from the crazy people. Who knows? But it's hard for me. I look at the skill, and I think Kenneth Walker is a more skilled running back. I think he could do more than Breece Hall, which is not the narrative that's out on right now. So I am literally on the opposite pole of this spectrum here, because Breece Hall is supposed to come in and he's supposed to be the pass catching back. So it's very hard, this one. This is something that's been bugging me wild. And this is also why I did not want to draft right away in this draft, because I felt like Breece Hall was the obvious pick. And I think that Kenneth Walker is just as good as value. And we talk about it how many shows now that we don't know what's going on with Chris Carson. It's shaky. Rashad Penny had a phenomenal end of the year. His health history is a little concerning. Kenneth Walker actually is in a position to completely take over the backfield in a run heavy Pete Carroll offense. So on the other end of things, I mean, both teams, if you look at the Seahawks and Jets, both are pretty bad. Both are trying to start a rebuild here. I mean, I think the Jets are far more ahead than the Seahawks are in their rebuild. But yeah, that's definitely one of my different takes here. But I definitely think Kenneth Walker was the running back to go to this year. If you could just trade back and sit on him. But all right, enough about the running backs here. I have to make a pick here. The fourth pick, if I'm going based off of the value that I see in front of me here, there's really two guys that I'm looking at, and it's the next two that Sleeper has ranked. it is Drake London and Treylon Burks. And, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to snag Drake London here. I just think that team in general is on the up and up as well. They got a lot of weapons. They just got rid of Mike Davis. They're talking about Cordero moving more to a slot role this year. And I just think Drake London, that 6'5" frame, man, that is going to be a nightmare for teams to try to cover the seams with Pitts and then get on the outside with a 6'5" dude that could actually break down and run great routes. So I really like his skill. I like the spot that he landed in. They obviously are rolling with Mariota this year, which is definitely going to be a fantasy challenge for him, definitely in his first year. I'm not saying out of these receivers that he's going to have the best first year right away. I don't think he will at all. But long term, I like this guy. Very skilled. They're obviously rebuilding over there. They just drafted Ritter as well. Very promising, and that's why I went with London here.
Yeah, honestly, that would have been my pick as well. I currently have London as my receiver one, my number one in this class. But yeah, I would have gone the exact same way, and I love the pick. But just to kind of wrap it up, so we have Breece Hall and Walker went 1-2.
Yep.
And then it's a run of receivers of Wilson, Mike took London, then Burks, Olave, Watson, Williams, Sky Moore, and then now it is my turn at 10. And I'm stuck, Mike. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, this is definitely looking different than the few Dynasty rookie drafts we've had over the past year.
Just because I have control of the screen here, I see two guys that I'm kind of torn between, and that is hold on. And that is James Cook and George Pickens.
I can't argue with that.
Right now, I've got Pickens as my best available receiver. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's I think I have him as my 6th ranked receiver.
Okay.
But here he would be 8th off the board. And honestly, I like that value, but at the same time, I mean, running backs in fantasy are hard to come by, and you'd be getting the brother to Dalvin Cook in an offense that is electric and fantastic. But if I'm making this pick, and he's kind of a my guy, a little bit of a my guy, and I'm going to go with Pickens.
I like that.
The way I see it is Pittsburgh knows how to draft receivers. I don't think they would have drafted him for no reason, just to get a receiver. I think him and Pickett, the picks of Pittsburgh, are going to honestly do really well. And honestly, if Pickens, this is Dynasty again, I'm not expecting Pickens to be a top 20 receiver this year. I see him being a guy that kind of balls out in coming years. And who knows what happens to Deontay Johnson or Claypool? Who knows? Maybe they go on and do greater, bigger things, or they stay in Pittsburgh. But either way, I think Pickens is going to be great. I think he's going to be fantastic in Pittsburgh. And I wanted him on my team. I saw him as the best available player. So I took him.
Oh, yeah. It's so funny. His NFL comparison was actually Chase Claypool, which is very funny. And that's a good point that you made, that maybe Deontay or Chase will be moving in a year or two. Who knows what's going on, The Steelers are in a weird spot. They're not in a rebuild per se, but they are still trying to get back to that dominant Steelers team with the solid defense and the offense to get it done. But talk about the player, man. I love this guy's attitude, the stuff that he brings to the field, man, that nastiness. Like, I played defense in college. It's hard to ignore somebody when they're giving you that kind of energy. You have to put some focus on it, and he has the play to back it up. Like, he's an electric player. I bet you he'll be electric in that locker room. And, everybody talks about his off the field issues and his character issues. I mean, who better in the NFL to deal with that than Mike Tomlin? I feel like Mike Tomlin has been dealing with that for years. I mean, he went through the Le'Veon Bell phase. He went through the AB phase, and I'm sure there was others. But, yeah, I mean, what a spot for him. And on top of that, just being the best available there, easy pick. Funny enough, James Cook went right after there. Followed it up with Dotson, Trey McBride, first tight end to go. Of course, David Bell, and then Rachaad White. And Rachaad White was actually going to be my next pick here.
Of course.
Right with James Cook. I have Rachaad White, I think, one spot above him in my running back rankings. But Rachaad White, I think, is in a beautiful spot. On top of being a big runner, a big downfield runner, and good hands, I think the spot he landed in is beautiful. No more Ronald Jones. He's the clear-cut number 2 coming into the year, and Fournette was already rumored to possibly have left this year. So, you don't know what's going on. Brady's going to leave. That team is going to have to go back through the rebuild because I think when Brady leaves, the whole team is going to leave basically and go chase a chip, go chase a paycheck, whatever they got to do. But Rachaad White is a beautiful back to throw in the system. He's a bigger Leonard Fournette with hands, and that's the way I see him, and I love the guy. I think he's in a great spot. He might not do much this year. I know he's going to be involved in the passing game. I'm pretty sure they still have Gio Bernard and then some of their smaller pass-catching backs, but I think for the future, he's a great running back, and that's definitely someone I was looking for there at the turnaround. Obviously, the computer has all my notes in the system here. So, yeah, on the clock again, went wide receiver first. I'm probably going to stay away from wide receiver here. The one wide receiver I really like out of the names here that are down below, I really like Alec Pierce. I think he's in a great spot as well with a Matt Ryan gunslinger. So I think that's a great pick as well. But I'm actually going to go down here, and I'm going to get a running back since I got robbed, and I'm going to go with Dameon Pierce. I think this is another guy that's in a really good spot in Houston. Okay, there we go. I was going to say I kept pressing, and I was like, what's going on? All right. Dameon Pierce, man, I like it's a great spot for him. Obviously, he's fighting with Mac over there, but, I mean, I don't know with Mac. Mac looked phenomenal with a literal run-first team last year, and I think this guy also, Pierce, adds a little bit of the pass-catching game. So it's a great spot, a rebuilding team. They're going to be throwing the ball a ton. The fantasy value in the first year is definitely going to be there for Pierce. And I'm not saying RB1 or RB2, but you could probably throw him in that emergency, like need him for a flex. In redraft leagues, I could definitely see him being that type of guy, especially towards the end of the year. And that's to say that he doesn't pass up Marlon Mack in training camp. Who knows what's going on there? So that'll be very interesting. I believe as well they also they had Philip Lindsay, and he's no longer there anymore. I think he's with
right now. I think it's just Burkhead.
Burkhead is the third.
Burkhead and Matt.
Right. Yep. So, I mean, wow, what a pair to go up against, man. I mean, he's coming in as a rookie, and he has a chance. So you talk about value right away, long-term value. I like the guy. He's a great runner. He runs with really good balance from what I've seen from him. So I really like Pierce here.
Yeah, and another run of a position after you took Pierce. I agree. Oh, yeah. I honestly was eyeing him for my 110, but clearly computer has an eye for a certain position after you picked. But after you went, it was Spiller, Robinson, and then Kenny Pickett went off the board. Then how do you pronounce it? Algier?
I don't even want to try. You know me with the pronunciations, man. I'm not this isn't my specialty over here. I'm kind of a wing it. If I had to look at this guy, I'm going to call him Algieri. That's going to be my nickname for him until I learn the real pronunciation.
Makes sense to me. And then is it Davis Price?
Davis Price.
Yeah, I thought so. And I'm looking at there's a few. It's funny because I was like, a lot of these guys aren't going to fall to me because I didn't expect to run on running backs and a QB. But I'm looking very much in the same situation as you.
Okay.
And I'm going to take. Hold on, I got to resume this draft. Mechie.
Ooh.
I say same situation because it's Houston. They are a team that is just, I don't know, filling up with bottom of the barrel talent and filling up with the rookie talent. Because who does Mechie? Mechie has Brandon Cooks ahead of him, and then it's Nico Collins, and I think it was Deshaun Hamilton, and a bunch of other guys who probably had 10 fantasy points for your team 2 or 3 years ago. And that is their roster. So I think Mechie, he tore his ACL, I think in December, but I see him, maybe he misses a game, maybe he comes into camp a little bit late. But either way, it's a dynasty. So I'm not even banking on him to be super fantastic year one. And even if he is, he's probably got one of the best shots of the last remaining receivers to have immediate impact on their team. And
Definitely,
for that, and for that, absolutely, give me some Mechie all day because he can easily slot right against Brandon Cooks and immediately see some targets. And for happily, because at this point in the drafts, for me at least, you're not going to draft a guy who in 4 years is finally going to make his shot. You kind of want the guys who are going to maybe not ball out early, but at least see the field early and get some NFL reps and actually be on an NFL team for the first year. And that is exactly what Mechie's going to get. And I think the only reason he's going this late is probably because he's on the Houston Texans and because of an injury. But aside from that, I mean, he's going to get volume, he's going to get usage, and happily, I will take that over, I don't know, a lot of these other guys.
Oh, yeah. And even the wide receivers that went after him, like I said, I mentioned Pierce. I do like Pierce, but I mean, Pittman's the guy there. That's not going to change, you know. Matt Ryan loves to feed his number one receiver. And Pierce could step up and be that guy. I'm not saying he won't. But we'll see with Matt Ryan. And you look at Houston's situation, I feel like it's just a tryout this year. It's like they wanted to rebuild last year, but they kind of got paused with the Deshaun Watson controversy. They didn't know what was going on, so they couldn't actively start the rebuild, I feel like, until this year. So this year, it's that part in the rebuild where it's a tryout. It's, hey, come ball out for our team, and we'll keep you here long term. We'll build around you, you know. So he's in a great spot. Obviously, they're going to be throwing the ball probably more than any team in the league this year. So yeah, I love it, and the wide receiver after him too. I just want to mention a lot of people I'm seeing are very high on this guy here, Wan'Dale Robinson, and I just got to say, I don't see where the hype is coming from. Skilled, yes. Skill guy for sure. But the New York Giants, man, you want to know who's more skilled than Wan'Dale Robinson? Kadarius Toney. And what did he do last year? He did nothing. And he was their slot guy, which Wan'Dale is supposed to be the slot specialist. What is he going to do in New York? You know, and I hope I'm wrong on this. Like, I don't like betting against guys, but, I mean, look at what Toney did last year. The guy – Kadarius Toney is a freak athlete, and they're very, very similar in size, by the way. Very similar, like literally identical copies. And I just don't know what the Giants were doing here. Obviously, they're looking for some kind of spark. Maybe Toney's not going to be there much longer. You already heard from him that he's skipping out on camp and stuff like that. So could be a big move there. Maybe he's taking that rollover. But regardless, I just wanted to get that point out. I don't know why the hype is so high on him. The team hasn't been able to do anything in years. Obviously, they're rebuilding everything at this point. They really did have a great draft, by the way. I thought a great NFL draft.
I agree.
Their moves. But yeah, I don't get the hype there. I think Mechie was a great pick there. And then you look after him, you got Kyron Williams, the Notre Dame running back, going to the Rams there. And then the 2 tight ends, which is really interesting because I was also in 2 Dynasty rookie drafts where those 2 tight ends, Dulich and Woods, both went in the 3rd round. And I had one of the decisions to take one. I'm in a Dynasty league right now, in our league where I have Dalton Schultz as my running tight end, and behind him I have Albert O. So in my mind, I was like, you know what? I'm going to get a tight end regardless. I'm going to go ahead and take Dulich. And I got Dulich, and I locked down the Broncos tight end position there. But 2 freak athletes. Dulich is more of a receiver than anything. And I think with Denver this year, the thing is Russ has never really supported a top-tier tight end ever in fantasy. You can blame that on the system. You can blame that on the run-heavy offense, whatnot. But they're planning on using him in the slot. That's the word on the street. And then you got Jelani Woods, who's just a freak, man. Like this guy, 6'7", 265. We all thought Mo Alley Cox was a monster. This guy is an actual monster, man. And I can't – like the Colts, man, the way the Colts are building, man, they might be a sleeper for the Super Bowl this year. No joke. I think Matt Ryan obviously is going to do Matt Ryan things throughout the year, but he's going to be solid enough to get them there, and I think at least win 1 playoff game. And I'll mention that a little bit later, maybe in a few other videos when we start talking about our too early to pick stats for the year.
If it weren't the AFC, I would probably agree with you, but oh boy, is there a gauntlet to go through?
There is. You do have some powerhouses that have been like the Chiefs. The Chiefs, who knows? True. Like some powerhouses, man. They lost some defensive guys. The Chiefs did draft very well as well. I'm not saying they're going anywhere contention-wise, but I think the Colts are going to slide into the playoffs this year, and Matt Ryan's going to be what they thought Wentz was going to be. So, I like what they're doing. But, yeah, I'm on the clock here. I got a running back and I got a receiver so far. Top of the board, I'm looking at my own team taking Jalen Tolbert. I love that pick in the real NFL draft. I have no interest in him in Dynasty right now at all. So yeah, as I go down my list here, there are a few guys that raise some eyebrows, a few guys that I do like. And you know, I think at this point in the 3rd round of this Dynasty draft, I think this is where there's 12 teams in the Dynasty League. There's going to be some teams that are itching for quarterbacks, and that's why I'm going to take one, and I'm going to go Desmond Ridder here.
Ooh.
And I'm gonna snag him now. I think this is another guy that, one, they're calling him the 40-year-old wonder. The guy looks like he's been through it all and back. Just a grehe character, you know, and he comes out publicly, says he's going to win a Super Bowl for them. I feel like who's not doing that at this point? But, you know, a great guy. He's got a cannon in college, very poised. He did play for Cincinnati where he sat in basically an untouched pocket for his whole senior year, barely got touched, you know. So, yeah, I love what he was doing in college. And on top of that, I feel like in the 3rd round, when I take London in the 1st round, I think it's beautiful that I could stack these 2 guys now for the rest of their careers. If Ridder is the guy, which I think he might not be the guy long-term, but I think he's going to beat out Mariota and play at some point this year for sure. I think if you give them some time, that might be a Matt Ryan, Julio Jones situation. And who's to say it won't be, you know? Drake London's the taller guy. In no way is he better yet. He hasn't touched the field. But what a pair, man. And to lock that up in the 3rd round, and I see here as soon as I take him, Willis goes right after, which would be expected. I would expect a lot of those quarterbacks or Kenny Pickett definitely to go around end 1st, beginning 2nd, but definitely those guys end 2nd, beginning 3rd in normal drafts. But, I like the pairing there, and you got some good guys going after there. A lot more tight ends. Wow. And that leads it to your pick, Kyle. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, this computer really likes to go on a run of positions. But yeah, after you, Ruckert, Willis, Batty, Otten, and Bellinger. But I fully agree with you. I was also eyeing Ritter if he made it back to me, and I honestly didn't expect him to. But I like Ritter, third round. I think he has the potential, honestly, to start this year, maybe a few late games. Or honestly, if he shows up in training camp and balls out, cool. And that's a very easy spot. I think Atlanta is willing to kind of transfer over to him. Because why give it to Mariota when you can see what the young guy has to prove and to show? But that's just how I see it, where Willis is kind of in a situation where it is a run-first offense where Tannehill already has to do the bare minimum. And he will do the bare minimum and keep his job for probably another year or two.
Right, and I think that's mainly as well because they're a playoff team too. So that one's a tighter spot, like you mentioned.
Yeah, but I'm eyeing, and I am actually quite surprised he is still here because this is a guy I would have taken early third. Honestly, if Mechie were gone, I would have taken him, and that is Jalen Tolbert. If I can resume this. And I'm going to take him.
Love it. One of the boys, baby.
And because he's on an offense that is going to be passing a lot because the Cowboys love to pass even when they don't need to. And for that, I would love to get a guy who I think can compete for that second receiving option in that offense. And he may not get it this year, but honestly, without Cooper, I think it's CeeDee Lamb and then a fight. I mean, I like Gallup a lot. I've had him in many leagues. I probably still have him on a ton, but I think he's just kind of a guy. Not like he's not just a guy. I think he'd be a fantastic guy anywhere on any other team, but I think he's someone who can be kind of beat out for that position in this offense. And I think Tolbert, if he does it this year, incredible. But if not, I think he's still a guy who can break free because he's a big play guy. He's going to ball out. He's going to create those downfield plays. He's going to kind of wiggle his way out of a few early tackles and get himself into the end zone a lot more than he probably should. And for that, I complete a 3-receiver team, 3-receiver draft. And that kind of goes to show, like we said earlier, I picked who I thought were the best available guys. And compared to who went after these guys, I'm very happy with who I took. I think I'm super happy. I'm the only team that took 3 of one position or whatever. But I am A-okay with that because they are 3 fantastic receivers. And with that, we end the mock, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, beautiful. You know, and obviously, like we mentioned before we did the draft here, you're going to draft team-specific, what you need. We're going based off of value here. And I look at your 3 receivers, man, and Tolbert is great value in the third round. So I wanted to point out, too, I don't think that he's going to beat out Gallup for that outside spot this year. But I think he will beat out James Washington for a wide receiver 3. I think that's a given. Washington has a lot of talent, don't get me wrong. He did some crazy things in Pittsburgh with the deep ball. He goes up and he gets it. Tolbert's a 6'3" guy. I mean, this guy could step in right away and make some noise this year immediately. So I really love that pick. You talk about value in the third round, man. That's the pick you're waiting on, man. The draft's going by so slow. And you're like, come on, I just want to make these picks. And you see that value, and that's when you really start itching, is when he's coming up, and you're like, I need this guy. I love it, though. I'm a Cowboy fan. I don't know about his immediate impact, but I think within a few weeks into the season, I think he will be on the field regardless. Whether he's seeing a consistent role or not, who knows? He's going to really have to beat out James Washington, who's also a young dude and kind of does – similar things that Tolbert does. But we'll see. You know, I love it. I also think if we're talking Dallas Cowboys and fantasy, I think CeeDee Lamb is being way overpriced this year. He's going way too high in fantasy drafts right now. They're expecting him to hit that 120, 130 targets, and I don't see that at all. I don't think this Dallas offense and my boys are going to force feed CD the ball. I think more than anything, I think it's a realistic shot that Dalton Schultz can test with all our wide receivers on having the most targets on the team. I think that's a real possibility, but I can't see CD having 40, 50 more targets than the next receiver. I can't see that this year. I don't think teams are going to let Dallas do that either. But yeah, I love the pick. Great third round value. I think there's a lot of great picks. Some of those tight ends, realistically, I don't think I would be going for in the third round there. Obviously, that's just sleeper here, but I probably wouldn't touch any of those. You got Matt Corral in the third round with the last pick as well. I mean, why not? I mean, Corral, you know, that's not bad. He could be a starter this year. He could beat out Sam Darnold and be the guy, you know. Why not take him in the third round? And you mentioned that as well. The guys that you take in the third, fourth round, those are the guys that you're taking because in a few years they're going to help you out. You don't want to take a guy in the first two rounds that is not going to give you immediate value within 2 years of being in the league. You probably don't want that. But you look at guys like that, like Tolbert, like that could actually play right away. Corral that could play right away. I don't like we said, Willis probably not. Ritter definitely. Jelani Woods, correct? Yep, might. Dulich might. Pierce definitely will. Like great value there. Great value. I think I want to mention too, I'm looking at one guy I think was taken way too early, and I think that's the San Francisco running back. I guarantee you he's going to step into the system and prove me wrong instantly. Literally, who hasn't been good in the San Francisco system other than, you could argue, Trey Sermon, I guess. He's really the only one that struggled so far in that system. But that's probably one of the probably slighter reaches, I would say, not even that far off. Me personally, we were talking about at the show, I'm taking Jerome Ford from Cleveland over him any day. I think Ford steps in to a situation where he's that guy, and probably right around that third, fourth round range in rookie drafts that he might not have immediate value this year. But Kareem Hunt, most likely going to be gone next year. He'll step right into that number 2 role, which is still run. It's a committee run by Nick Chubb, but I think he could easily take over that number 2 spot when Kareem leaves, or vice versa. Who knows who's going to leave? But I think I would definitely eye him over Davis there. But other than that, is there any picks you really loved in this one? Any computer picks you loved? Any ones you didn't like here?
I really liked the Dotson at the end of the first. And I know I had that opportunity to take him as well. But I think Dotson is a guy that I've been eyeing. I just kind of liked Pickens a little bit more. But that was a good one I liked. And then this one kind of ties into Mike. We've got a viewer question that we missed 10 minutes ago. So Greg, if you're still around,
let's hear it.
Got this answer. But that is David Bell at the second round. And here we've got Greg asking, I had the 207 and the 210 and the 14-person Superflex rookie draft. Top players available are David Bell, Alex Pierce, Wan'Dale Robinson, Brian Robinson, Algier, Corral, and Davis Price. What should I do? So, Mike, looking at this list and kind of going through the draft that we just went through, kind of, I guess, Greg, if you're still around, hopefully you are, 2 guys out of this list that you think are best available. I think right off the top of my head, I think Bell is probably best of the bunch. I think he is one that I think in Cleveland, as in this receiving position, who I think it's just Amari Cooper, and I think Jarvis Landry still isn't there. I think it's a position. I think it's team. Like I said with Mechie, it's a position where he can see reps and targets ASAP.
Yeah.
Whether it's just as the third receiver or just kind of right off the bench. But I think he's a guy who will be getting usage right off the bat. And that's kind of what you want to go for, at least in my eyes. And Bell is certainly capable of kind of handling that. And that's probably, for me, pick one of these guys.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree with you there. I think talent, position that he's in, the team that he's in, I think that's definitely the pick you want to go with there. I would probably rule out Corral unless you were looking at going into the season with one starting quarterback. Maybe you're that desperate.
It is a super flex.
Right. So if you have one quarterback going into the year, I mean, maybe think about it. I would probably stay away there.
I think Corral for me in this situation kind of depends on your other QBs. If you're cool with Corral, maybe he's your QB4, go for it. But if he's going to be like your 3, I would probably rather just trade for someone else, because Corral could take another year to kind of claim that spot.
Yeah, so you mentioned Bell. I also mentioned that I really like Pierce. I'm ruling out Wandale. I don't think that you should go that early for him. That it's a tough one. Another one, Brian Robinson's a good pick, but I would definitely take Algier over Robinson here. One, just based off of his immediate fantasy impact. I think Algier, I know I'm butchering the pronunciation, but I think he has a really good shot to have immediate value this year. They just released Mike Davis, I think yesterday, whatever it was. So I mean, not a lot of competition. It's a rebuilding team. You never know. I mean, Cordero, they had mentioned that they're trying to split him out wide this year. They don't want to give him the ball as much as they did last year out of the backfield. So that's probably your best immediate running back right there. I can't disagree, Greg. I think I'm agreeing with Kyle here. I think Bell and Algier are the 2 picks that you should be eyeing right there.
If one of them are taken, I like Pierce as well.
Yes, that's definitely my next.
You touched on him earlier, but yeah,
and it's pretty crazy. That's not bad value at all for a 14 super flex. 14
not at all.
Oof, that's not bad.
I'm actually surprised Bell's making it out of the first with 14. I guess 14, it's super flex. I could picture a few QBs sneaking their way in the first.
Right. Yeah, so I'm assuming, since he did not list Willis or Ritter, that they're most likely gone at this point. So, I think those are great value picks, 2.07 and the 2.10, man. I would be happy taking, most likely, if you're running back needy, I would go with Algier first, just to secure it. If not, I would go Bell first and then just take Algier afterwards. But like we said, if Bell's gone, Pierce is definitely that next receiver off this list here that I'm going with for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, so Greg is tuning back in. Looks like he's saying he's got Lamar and Kyler as his QBs. If they're your only 2, honestly, even if they are just your only 2, I think you're chilling at QB. I wouldn't worry about Corral. At that point, if you want depth, I would probably trade for somebody else. Maybe there's probably somebody who's just willing to dump, I don't know, Baker Mayfield or something. But I wouldn't worry about Corral. I really like the value you would get out of the other guys more than him. And that's kind of, Mike and I have said this several times, but drafting kind of better player rather than what your team needs in these rookie drafts. So, that's it just seems like a reach. It's too early to take Corral there. Not that he won't. Corral might even be the starter. I think Corral's biggest thing is he going to translate to the NFL?
Is he going to be successful in the NFL? That's his biggest question mark. I don't think it's about position or the team he's on. I think it's literally, can he do it? Can he handle the NFL? So that type of guy, I mean, I'm not taking him in the second round. If those are your only two quarterbacks, yes, it's worth a look in the third round. If you do have a third round pick, definitely worth a look. That's pretty good value in the third, fourth round, depending on how many rounds you have, obviously, and your roster limit, who you're going to have to cut after all of this. And trust me, I've seen some interesting rookie drafts with 6 rounds in them, and I'm looking at it like, all right, I'm going to have to cut 3 of them as soon as I'm done here. So, yeah, definitely Corral in the third, fourth, yeah, but I wouldn't look at him in the second. I think your QBs are stacked, and that's just a great spot to add some wide receiver depth, or like we said, go ahead and take Algieri there.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Kyler and Lamar have a bye week. You, at worst, have depth to feel comfortable throwing Bell in as your flex. Hopefully it's not, it doesn't come to that, and you have better players to slot in there, but that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah.
Especially year one, you probably get more, at least 2 points out of those guys compared to probably the 0 you'd get out of Corral this year specifically. Worry about QB next year.
Yep, and that's the most important thing too. I think we touched on this in the first round here, but I think rounds 1 and 2 in a dynasty rookie draft, I think you're looking more at probably the position that the person is in, the team he's on, who's the OC, who's his competition. I think you emphasize that more in the first 2 rounds. And in the third and fourth round, you emphasize more skill because maybe they're not in a good position, but maybe they're freak athletes and eventually they'll get their shot. So, yeah, I think that's the most important thing to look at. Position, what position is he in, who's calling his plays, who's his competition, and then that third, fourth round is when you start looking at, I think, skill. Who are the freaks that maybe are in a bad spot, but it's the NFL. He can get traded, something can happen, and then there you go. Freak athletes such as Justin Ross, who didn't even get drafted in the NFL draft, but I guarantee you, if he makes the Chiefs squad, he will be the most picked up receiver in fantasy football for at least a good week. You will see him on the sleeper trending page. So guys like that are guys that you're looking for later, for sure. So, yeah, Greg, I like where your team is at. I wouldn't do anything different, and I think Kyle would agree with me there. So, yeah, it's very interesting. Any other notes you want to drop for the folks here?
No, I think I just want to wish everybody a good luck in their future rookie mocks, or actually not even mocks, they're rookie drafts. And hopefully either you get your guy or you trade for your guy, or if you just traded out of this draft, good for you. This is probably the drafted trade out of.
Oh, yeah, and definitely.
And
as much as possible.
Yeah, and good luck. I mean, feel free to tank this year. There's some good guys coming up next year. And that's going to be an exciting year.
This was the year of wide receivers, and next year is the year of quarterbacks and running backs from what it looks like. So very, very exciting. And that's also something that you got to take into account as well. That's a little bit harder to predict, but there are a few guys out there that are already looking at the rookies for next year, and that's the report that's coming out. So, yeah, you always keep that in mind. If you got to trade out, get the value next year, get the receivers this year, you'll be good to go, man.
Yeah, and for anybody sticking around, thanks for tuning in. I think Mike and I are going to call it here. It is 11:11 on our end, so make a wish. And my wish is for everybody to win their fantasy leagues. But, yeah.
Starts with winning the draft, baby.
Got to win the draft first. But thanks for tuning in. If you're watching this on YouTube post-stream, we are trying to stream more, I guess, regularly. I would say Wednesdays are probably going to be our days, but if not, keep in touch. Follow us on socials, and we'll announce when we are going live. And then if you're watching live, tune into our socials and feel free to watch this again, kind of get a recap if you missed any picks. And thanks for tuning in, anybody and everybody.
Appreciate it. Good luck in those drafts, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a great night, and thanks for watching.